let's go to Fort Hood. We have, of course, the man who did these killings was Major Nidal Malik Hassan, and he has a history of apparently saying some outrageous things that should have drawn red flags. Sympathy for suicide bombers. He apparently posted that online and talked to others about it.
A recent and evolving history of doing that.
Yes.
It's not a lifetime of doing that.
Well, it's a little of both. Now, you're right. He's certainly gotten, it seems, much more radical as time passed by. And then he'd been speaking up about this more as time passed by as well. And he'd been saying recently that it was the duty of all Muslims to fight against American aggressors. Now, when you see a quote like that, that's red flag, red flag, red flag. You got to investigate that guy, because I don't mean you strip him of all of his, his rank, or you put him in the brig.
You talk to him.
But you talk to him. You do hopefully a quiet investigation behind the scenes as well, and look into whether that guy's trouble. I mean, here's a guy saying, "I think suicide bombers make sense." I mean, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is, right? And it doesn't matter if he's Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. It doesn't, that's a red flag no matter how you slice it, right? But given the history of Muslim suicide bombers, and he's Muslim, I would say, yes, that's relevant. So you take that into consideration.
You do.
Right?
That's profiling, though.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that is profiling.
No. Yes, but and that's exactly what I want to talk about, Michael. What's rational profiling and what's irrational profiling? To say, oh, well, he's Muslim, so let's profile him, is crazy talk. There are tens of thousands of Muslims in the United States military. There's millions of Muslims in the country. What are you going to do? Just assume they're all guilty? I mean, that's literally un-American. It's not right, and it's counterproductive. It hurts your cause. It alienates more people. It might even drive more people to do crazy things.
Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't help. And someone said, well, oh yeah, but he was against the two wars. But that's also a majority of Americans. For 4 or 5 million Muslims, forget that. That's a majority of Americans. You can't profile based on that either. It's not rational. It's not, and we have freedom of speech in this country. But can you profile on specific actions and postings online and things that he said to his colleagues, and if they appear to be dangerous and supporting violence? Of course.
Well, where do you draw that line? I don't know that I disagree with you, but where do you draw that line? I mean, that's if 100% of arrests of people driving drugs through Florida are Hispanic. Let's just say that 100%. Are you going to pull every Hispanic over? Your argument says no, right?
That's
are you
right.
going to pull
Of course,
anybody else?
absolutely.
Are you going to pull over anybody else?
In this hypothetical,
Yeah.
if the only people who are driving have the drugs are Hispanic Americans or Hispanics, right? Well, can I use that not to pull over people for drug purposes? In this absurd and non-existent hypothetical,
I know
yes.
it's an absurd and non-existent, but I'm trying
Right.
I'm trying to go to what that would be, because following your logic, there are going to be so many ways to apply that.
Okay, so let's apply that logic. Okay, so if you have a guy who is used to be a member of the militia, right? Might be a neo-Nazi, who knows, right? And who's made statements about, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to rise up against the government. Red flag. That goes in the file. That's interesting. If you're in the military and you got a gun and you're talking about taking up arms against the government, well, then I got to, quote unquote, profile you. That's rational. That's based on something you've done or something you've said, right?
Yeah.
But am I going to profile all Christians because that guy was Christian? Of course not. Am I going to profile all whites because that guy was white? Of course not. Am I even going to profile all right-wingers in the military? Of course not, right?
Yeah.
So you need a rational basis on a case-by-case basis. And I think we had plenty on Hassan to say, hey, he should have been profiled here. And now ABC News is saying that some officials, CIA officials, knew about his history and that did not properly communicate that to the CIA. Now, we'll see some Hoekstra, who's a Republican in the Congress, is saying, I demand investigation.
Well, and so is Lieberman, who's a Republican in the Senate, is demanding an investigation and a hearing into what was overlooked and how we make this. And of course, this is doubly confusing because he was Nadal is a psychiatrist. So what do you do when you profile? You profile them and then you send them for psychiatric counseling. So it's a doubly difficult situation. One thing that's being overlooked, because I'm saying it's being overlooked because I overlooked it, is that he woke up today and he's talking. And it's very rare in cases like this, in public cases like this, that we have the shooter. Usually they kill themselves or are killed by marksmen. And so in this case, we have the shooter, and hopefully we're going to learn a lot more about that and what went on with it.